I have a confession. When I was asked to talk, two questions kind of came to mind. Why me, and what on earth do I have to actually stand up here and talk about? As I reflected on my path and kind of how I got to where I am today, I realized I've been very fortunate to be exposed to a diversity of ideas and then critically have the room to kind of play around with those ideas. And that's how I find myself today in my current role as the senior scientist for the Glowing Plant Project. Our goal with the Glowing Plant Project is to really educate and inspire people by making a plant that, well, glows. And so to talk about this, I have to tell you where I'm from. So I'm originally from a small rural Midwest community called Abilene in the great state of Kansas. And if you spend any time at all with me, you will undoubtedly see me exude a exuberance and probably irrational pride for my hometown that only a native son or daughter could have. That being said, I am realistic enough to know that you will be hard-pressed to find Abilene, Kansas on any list of technological or innovation hubs. Despite that, though, there was sufficient diversity of ideas and room to play with those ideas to get me started on my path. So in high school, I was fortunate enough to take a wide range of classes, two of which really stand out. An advanced biology class, and then a horticulture class. My high school still actually teaches the vocational classes like shop and agriculture education. In the horticulture class, they introduced us to this really fascinating idea and process called plant tissue culture and micropropagation. So essentially what you're able to do is take your favorite plant, whatever it may be, cut it up into a whole bunch of little pieces to the extreme of individual plant cells. You put this tissue or these cells on a jello-like substance that has a little bit of fertilizer, some sugar, and a few plant hormones. And you can basically regrow an entire plant out of that. And for a plant biology nerd like me, this was amazing. About the same time that was happening, I was also in my advanced biology class learning about genetics and genetic engineering. And we were fortunate enough to get a kit that allowed us to do kind of the hello world experiment of molecular biology, which is where you take a gene from a green fluorescent jellyfish and put it into a bacteria. And then that bacteria, when you expose it to UV light, will glow green. Yeah, that was amazing. If any of you ever get a chance to do that experiment, do it. It will, like, blow your mind. So it doesn't take a lot of additional thought to say, hey, we've got these two things. I got this plant tissue culture micropropagation system that's set up over here. And we did this really cool experiment where we put a green fluorescent gene into a bacteria. What if I could combine these two? And I was fortunate enough to basically have the time and the room and the space to play around with that. And that's what I tried to do. I actually tried taking that green fluorescent gene from the jellyfish and putting it into a plant, in my case, African violets. So I went through, did all the work, tried to figure out how to do it, and spent the better part of a quarter like a dark closet with a UV light trying to see if I couldn't find a clump of cells that were kind of greenish in color. Now, I have to admit it did not work, perhaps not surprisingly, and worse than that, given what I know now, the odds of it actually working were like slim to none. But that's the key, given what I know now, because it's that project. It was those diversity of ideas and the ability to kind of play around and experiment with those ideas that led me to push on and go to undergrad and then ultimately grad school, all the while working around and tinkering in labs, playing around, which then ultimately led me to this position now as the senior scientist in the Glowing Plant Project. I mean, I get a second chance to try and make a glowing plant, which is kind of phenomenal and exciting. It's just, yeah, sorry. It's beyond words. So I've watched a few talks like these, and I don't know, I've always felt at the end of them like, well, that's you, but what can I do, right? I mean, that's your situation, not mine. And so what I wanted to kind of, to wrap things up a little bit is bring home the fact that you're already halfway there, right? So for me, this kind of running theme of being exposed to a diversity of ideas on the one hand, and then taking that next step further and playing around with those ideas was critical. Simply by being here today, you're exposing yourself to a wide range of ideas. So what I would encourage you to do is, like, over the next couple of weeks or so, take the time to carve out a little bit of time to try to think about these ideas and play around with them and see what happens. And if you keep doing that, who knows where you'll be? I mean, you may have to end up standing up here, give a talk, and think to yourself, why me and what on earth am I going to talk about? So, thank you.
Kyle Taylor, everyone.